In 1581, inside the royal palace in Moscow, a father beat his pregnant daughter-in-law so severely that she miscarried. His son confronted him. The argument that followed lasted less than a minute. By the end of it, the father had struck his son in the head with an iron-tipped staff. The young man died 4 days later. The father, who had just killed his own son and heir, was Ivan the Terrible, Tsar of all Russia. He was not a villain from a story. He was not a myth or a legend. He was the man who built modern Russia, who fought off 3 empires simultaneously, who reformed the legal system, expanded the Orthodox Church, and opened trade routes to Western Europe. And he was the man who spent the last decades of his life in a spiral of paranoia, religious terror, and violence so extreme that his own legacy nearly collapsed under its weight. This is the full story of Ivan the Terrible, and it is far more complicated and far more human than the name suggests. Ivan Vasilievich was born on August 25, 1530, in the Grand Duchy of Muscovy, the medieval predecessor to what would become the Russian Empire. He was born into power. His father, Vasily III, was the Grand Prince of Moscow, ruler of the largest territory in Europe. Ivan was the heir to all of it. He was 3 years old when his father died. That single fact, 3 years old, suddenly the most powerful child in Russia, explains almost everything that followed. His mother, Elena Glinskaya, ruled as regent in his name. She was intelligent, capable, and ruthless. A woman who had clawed her way to power in a court full of men who wanted her dead. For 5 years she held the regency together by sheer force of will. Then she died. Ivan was 8 years old. The official cause of death was illness. Historians today believe she was poisoned. What followed was one of the most psychologically damaging childhoods in recorded history. The boyars, the Russian noble class, had been waiting for this moment. With the regent dead and the heir a child, they seized control. They installed their own candidates in positions of power. They looted the treasury. They fought each other for dominance in the palace corridors while the child Ivan watched from the sidelines. Ivan did not merely witness this chaos, he lived inside it. He was housed in the palace but treated, by many accounts, as an inconvenience. Fed irregularly, ignored, humiliated. Courtiers who bowed to him in public treated him with contempt in private. He watched powerful men who were supposed to serve him, take whatever they wanted without consequence. Contemporary accounts describe Ivan as a sensitive, highly intelligent child who read voraciously and had a remarkable memory. He was deeply religious from an early age, immersed in the Orthodox Christian faith that would shape his entire worldview. He was also, by those same accounts, developing a capacity for cruelty that alarmed even the adults around him. He was not born a monster, he was made one. At 16, Ivan made his first decisive move. He summoned the boyars. He accused the Shuisky family, one of the most powerful noble clans, of treason. The head of the family was thrown to the palace dogs and torn apart. Ivan was 16 years old. The message was received. In January 1547, Ivan was crowned Tsar of all Russia. He was 17 years old and he was about to surprise everyone. The early years of Ivan's reign were, by almost any historical measure, remarkably successful. He surrounded himself with capable advisors, a group historians call the Chosen Council, and together they implemented a series of reforms that genuinely transformed Russia. He reformed the legal code. He created Russia's first standing army, the Streltsy, professional infantry armed with firearms. He reformed local governance, reducing the power of corrupt appointed governors. He opened Russia to Western trade. The English Muscovy Company established direct trade relations with Russia in 1553, bringing new technologies and diplomatic connections to a country that had been largely isolated from Western Europe. And he expanded Russia dramatically. The conquest of Kazan in 1552, a major Tatar Khanate that had been raiding Russian territory for generations, was one of the most significant military victories in Russian history. The Cathedral of St. Basil, the iconic structure that still dominates Red Square today, was built to commemorate the victory. This was Ivan at his best. Capable, determined, visionary. A ruler who understood that Russia needed institutions, not just a strong hand. Then his wife died. Anastasia Romanovna had been Ivan's wife since 1547. She was, by all historical accounts, one of the few people who could calm him, who could reach past the paranoia and the rage to the frightened, intelligent man underneath. She died in August 1560. She was approximately 25 years old. Ivan was convinced she had been poisoned. Modern forensic analysis of her remains found elevated levels of mercury, which could indicate poisoning, though the evidence is not conclusive. Whether she was murdered or not, Ivan believed she was. And that belief broke something in him. The chosen council was disbanded. His most trusted advisors were dismissed, exiled, or worse. Ivan began to see enemies everywhere. In 1564, his most trusted military commander, Prince Andrei Kurbsky, defected to Lithuania. He wrote Ivan a letter accusing him of tyranny. Ivan wrote back. The exchange of letters that followed is still studied today as a window into Ivan's mind. Brilliant, paranoid, religiously obsessed, and utterly convinced that any challenge to his authority was a challenge to God's will. And then he created the Oprichnina. In December 1564, Ivan did something no Russian ruler had ever done. He left Moscow. He took his family, his treasury, his personal library, and his household staff, and he simply left. He sent 2 letters back to the capital. The first accused the boyars of betrayal and announced his abdication. The second told the common people he was not angry with them. Moscow erupted. Delegations were sent to beg Ivan to return. Ivan agreed, on his conditions. His conditions were the Oprichnina, the Oprichniki, Ivan's private army, his secret police, dressed in black. They rode black horses. They carried a severed dog's head and a broom attached to their saddles. Symbols of their mission to sniff out and sweep away treason. They answered to no law except Ivan's will. What followed was years of systematic terror. Entire noble families were executed. Their estates were confiscated. The Metropolitan of Moscow publicly criticized Ivan's campaign. Ivan had him strangled in his cell. But the defining horror came in 1570. The city of Novgorod, once one of the great cities of medieval Russia, was accused of planning to defect to Lithuania. The evidence was flimsy, possibly fabricated entirely. Ivan didn't wait for evidence. He marched on Novgorod with his Oprichniki. What followed over the next several weeks has been called a massacre, a pogrom, and an act of deliberate urban destruction. Thousands of people killed, men, women, children, thrown into the river, burned. The city never fully recovered. By the 1570s, the Oprichnina had been formally dissolved. Ivan himself seemed to recognize that it had gotten out of control, but the paranoia and violence continued. His son, Ivan Ivanovich, his eldest surviving son and heir, had grown into a capable young man. Intelligent, politically engaged, groomed to eventually take the throne. In November 1581, Ivan the Elder walked into his daughter-in-law's chambers. Exactly what he saw, or what he believed he saw, is disputed by historians. What is certain is that he beat her severely. She was pregnant. She miscarried. His son confronted him. The argument escalated. In a moment of rage, a moment that Ivan himself would spend the rest of his life regretting, he raised his iron-tipped staff and struck his son in the temple. Ivan Ivanovich died 4 days later. The famous painting by Ilya Repin captures the aftermath. Ivan cradling his dying son, face contorted with grief and horror, blood everywhere. When it was displayed in 1885, Tsar Alexander III had it removed from public view. Ivan the Terrible survived his son by 2.5 years. He died in March 1584, reportedly while setting up a chessboard. He was 53 years old. History has struggled with Ivan the Terrible for 4 centuries. In Russia, his reputation has swung dramatically depending on the political needs of the moment. Stalin rehabilitated Ivan's image in the 1940s, commissioning Eisenstein's famous film and personally editing scenes he felt were too critical of his historical predecessor. The Russian word Grozny, often translated as terrible, more accurately means fearsome or awe-inspiring. It was a title of power, not simply of horror. The truth is neither the Soviet hero nor the Western monster. He was a man of genuine intelligence and capability who was broken in fundamental ways by a childhood of abandonment and terror. He built institutions that Russia needed. He also created a system of political violence that traumatized an entire country. The violence and the achievement were not separate things. They came from the same source. A man who had learned, at the age of 8, that the world was a place where the strong took what they wanted and the weak suffered. He decided very early that he would be strong, and he never really stopped paying for that decision. History gave Ivan the Terrible his name for a reason. But history also built the Russia he left behind, the Russia that would produce Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, that would defeat Napoleon and Hitler, that would put the first human being in space, Ivan Grozny, the fearsome, the terrible, the man who killed his son and built an empire. His story is a reminder that the people who shape history are rarely simple. They are rarely simply evil. And they are rarely, in the end, entirely free from what was done to them before they had the power to do anything at all. Sources are linked below. And if you haven't watched our video on Vlad the Impaler, that one is right here. Subscribe if you're new. New videos every week. We'll see you in the shadows.